Well, coming to you today from WeWorks in Gurgaon, I got a very special guest with me. He's a serial entrepreneur, currently busy with his new startup, Seekify. Arihant, welcome to Startup Central.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be here.
So he really is a serial entrepreneur. Seekify is what, your fifth startup?
Yeah, it's my fifth startup, and me and my co-founder have been working together for a decade, and this is the fifth startup together.
So you have two marriages, one to your wife and one to your co-founder?
That's always the joke. Like I call him my second half.
Second wife or first wife?
Always second. I know how this goes.
Okay, I'm just joking. But you know, if you look at Arihant's career, you've had a dream run. I'll get to your entrepreneurial journey in just a bit, but if I were to just look at your education as well. Stanford for your undergrad, INSEAD for your MBA. How did you not get sucked up into the corporate world with those big six-digit salaries and all that?
I mean, I got to the Silicon Valley when it was just going through the burst. So once you see this valley, and then my first job in life was with Google.
Okay.
That just changed my eyes. Like, you know, the power of the internet, the things one can really do was just mind-blowing.
You want to tell our viewers what your 5 startups have been? The founding member you've been of?
So I've been part of Healthkart, 1MG, our own startup called Joe Hukum, last Freshworks, and now Seekify. So these are the 5 companies that I've been part of, or founding teams, or helped build in the last decade.
So I'm going to ask you now about Seekify, which is what your new baby is.
Yeah.
What's Seekify up to? And I'm guessing it's going to have a lot of lessons from the last 5, which have been super success stories.
Yeah, so I think like what working with different startups does is gives you a good understanding of different parts of consumers, right? So from a Healthkart perspective, we understand what consumers really want. We built SaaS businesses before. And what we really feel is that customer experience is what really matters to most consumers today, and hence to most businesses. So that is the problem that we're trying to solve with Seekify. Seekify is a SaaS business which is going to be a system of intelligence, and that's ultimately going to automate customer experience.
But Arihant, I want to tell you this. You know, a couple of years ago, if you ask startups what you're into, everybody will say blockchain. Okay? Now everybody says SaaS. Okay? So, and I'm not guessing everyone can be a success story. So, how are you going to make sure that Seekify, you'll be able to replicate the success that you've seen in the last 10 years?
So I think
you have a differentiator, basically.
Yeah, of course we have a differentiator. We've thought about this from a macro view, from a future projection
But you agree with me, now everybody says SaaS, 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 SaaS.
Why do they say SaaS? Any clue?
You tell me.
I think there is so much consumer or VC money being wasted in the ecosystem that finally people see SaaS as a real profitable, cash flow rich business, right? So that's why SaaS has now become the flavor of the year. But my and Ajit's thought process is that technology needs to help change human life. And you know, for many founders, getting caught in the buzzword of the moment or the flavor of the season is often the mistake many people did. To be honest, like we actually looked and tried to understand blockchain, but we figured that that technology is not quite there yet. We didn't see a future. Similarly to the other startups that I've done, we were in e-commerce in 2010-11 when literally my parents made fun of me that why the hell are you joining a e-commerce startup? Why will people ever buy online? Fast forward 6 years, multi-billion dollars spent by VCs, and suddenly people can't imagine living without e-commerce, especially in India. Literally at villages, people are buying this, right? Similarly, when we started a chatbot business, nobody could understand that the future is going to be where people are interacting or chatting with bots.
Incidentally, you know, you've brought this up, so Arihant was what, one of the first few developers of chatbots before we even had the word bots?
Yeah, so we did this in 2015 when the term chatbot didn't exist. We used to call it automated chat. And then this has become such a media-driven darling term, and it's actually being used everywhere, and it's super successful. So I think the point I was trying to make is that you have to understand where technology is going to move and have a way to either harness it for some good or be able to play that ride.
Okay.
Right? So the next 5 years we see as intelligent business software, which is why Seekify is there.
So tell me a bit about Seekify. I believe that the launch is not just going to be in India.
So we firmly believe that Indian businesses are not ready to pay for software. We come from days of Nehru Place where CDs were easily available.
Or Palika Bazaar.
Palika Bazaar, and piracy was rampant. So globally, we are going to focus in the US. The US is always 50-60% of any SaaS business market, then perhaps Europe, and then almost Southeast Asia, Middle East, Africa. That's how it goes. But obviously our first few customers are always going to be closer to home. So we will start with a few, we've already started with a few people in Delhi and Bangalore, but the US and Europe are our key markets.
So when do you go live?
We are live with a few customers as we speak, and we'll probably be doing a larger global launch in early 2020.
And are you in fundraising drive?
I think you're always in fundraising drive as an entrepreneur. I think we've been lucky that given our resumes, we've had a lot of interest from good VCs. I think for us, it's not about the money, but the quality of the VC firm, and more importantly, the partner or partners that work with us. So hopefully, if you watch this space, we'll have something to announce in a month or so.
So if you're a 5-time entrepreneur and each of those have been successful, does that add to the pressure?
It does add to the pressure, like it really does. I think a VC told me that if this time you don't build a $50 billion business, I'm literally going to punch you.
Yeah.
So the pressure is there to perform. I think on the positive...
Is it also taken for granted and that adds to the pressure, oh, this guy's doing it, so it'll be a success?
Yeah, I think so too. I think ideas are cheap. It all comes down to execution, and when you have people who've sort of seen the movie before, been through that story, then they probably, the likelihood to succeed is that much higher.
Yeah.
Or that's what I tell myself when I'm like feeling scared.
But you still haven't told me what's going to be different from other SaaS-based startups when it comes to Seekify. So how are you doing it differently?
So the way Seekify is different is that we're literally going to automate all the different SaaS products within a business. Today, there is so much SaaS that each business is running 60 to 80 different products within that. Now we are focusing on customer experience, but the idea is, how do you tell all these softwares what to do, right? Can we actually create that intelligence that is able to automate all of this? Nobody in the world is really even looking at this.
So because you're trying to do something that you believe is not being done by anyone else.
Yeah, but that's what we believe the future is. Can you close the loop using data intelligence and automation?
Now let's talk about Arihant, the entrepreneur. We wish you all the very best at Seekify. But just going back a little bit into your recent past, we've already established that you started doing chatbots before there was even the word chatbots. We talk about exits, about venture capitalists. We don't talk often enough about when it's the right time for an entrepreneur to exit. When is the right time, and does it also mean that maybe you're a bit detached, or you're not as emotionally involved as a lot of people believe founders are?
Such a tough question. So I believe that entrepreneurs get lost in terms of why they're building what they're building, right? Do they want to chase valuation? Do they want to chase exit? Do they really want to build a sustainable business? Or do they really want to change the world? So what an entrepreneur is trying to achieve really differentiates how their journey looks like. A venture capital is a partner along the way. They should not be the one determining what the fate of your startup is. Ultimately, they are playing along with you and acting as a financing partner, but that doesn't change anything. So my view is that you need to do what is in the best interest of the company. So for example, when we sold Joe Hukum to Freshworks, and looking back a few years, I have no regret whatsoever.
You don't think you sold out too early and you missed out on some serious moolah?
My co-founder often jokes about that. But on the bright side, we feel that at that point, Joe Hukum was not going to become like $1 billion, $2 billion business because of the nature of the industry. And I think we sold at the right time, because after that, a lot of bot companies have crashed and burned. On the positive side, if you saw the news, Freshworks valuation has almost gone 6 times since we sold.
Yeah, because so that's what I'm saying, you missed out on opportunity.
Have we missed out?
Or is it notional?
No, I think we got enough in stock so that
our you still holding it?
Yeah, of course. So we've actually made money as Freshworks has grown.
Okay, so now, and you can will that Seekify could be as big, the next unicorn?
I think it's going to be much, much bigger.
Yeah.
But to add to it, I think like there is a lot of pleasure in being able to exit and exit successfully. Like me and my co-founders are living in this beautiful beach house, our own swimming pool, overlooking the ocean. Anybody who saw that wouldn't believe that we were in Chennai or Madras, right? Okay. I spent like years in California, yet I learned how to surf and
in Chennai?
Scuba in Chennai. Can you believe that? I'll show you pictures. It's actually beautiful.
In Chennai?
Yeah. Here in Delhi, everybody looks
Hey, don't call me elitist or like a snob when it comes to Chennai because it's not true.
See, there we go.
No, he's talking rubbish. I just didn't know that you will live in California and you'll do it in Chennai.
And
Maybe
Chennai has
because-
beautiful beaches.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's beautiful beaches, but I didn't know that you learned.
I think the lesson there was, even though we left our family behind, we were trying to build.
That must have been tough, right? You had a young daughter.
Yeah,
4,
I had a
5
young
years
daughter.
old.
Both me and Ajit left our children, left our wives, and spent time in Chennai. But when given lime, you make gin and tonics, right? That's how it should go.
Okay, I take that. It's a good one. When life throws you lemons, you have to make the best of it.
Right.
How have you ever been close to failing?
Many times. Like the real Joe Hukum story is a page turner. How we literally like survived from like going into ashes, almost finishing as a company, and then resurging it back, and then finally selling it.
Okay.
Even at our other startups, we have seen how fast you can sort of literally,
So how did
die.
you prevent that burn?
It's very hard. You just have to be smart about it. And my advice usually to people is never forget the first principles of business. EBITDA is not a bad word. Cash flow is important. Profitability is important. Ultimately, you want to build a business that is sustainable. I think what happens is that people forget that in the
But that's what
humdrum.
a lot of unicorns are also doing. I'm sure you read the last couple of days. For example, Paytm still has to turn profitable as India's original unicorn. Oyo, apparently a loss of $330 million. Is that a big problem that we're going to have in the Indian startup universe?
So these are all great examples. Believe it or not, I think what a lot of our viewers don't understand, there's actually a method to this madness. Now, 10 years ago, could you imagine that you paid a panwala with your mobile?
No.
Right? I bought flowers last night through my mobile. That is what Paytm and these billions of dollars have done. They have literally changed consumer behavior. I was recently in China, and credit cards don't exist. Paper money, people look
No,
at
they
you
don't,
funny.
yeah.
Everything is through the mobile. So these are the kind of changes, similar stories to the other examples you gave. Oyo is going to change the way people book hotels. WeWork is changing the way people look at office space, right? We're a very happy member of WeWork Labs and we love this place, right? So all these stories, I think, get convoluted in the reality
And so
of
you
things.
believe that you have to spend money to make money?
Yeah, you have to change consumer behavior, you have to build out a model, you have to get to scale, you have to be a category leader, and that's what a lot of these companies are doing.
And therefore, are you also an unpopular guy simply because of what you have done in the recent past can be read by a lot as a bad guy trying to take away jobs?
Of course. So when we were building a bots business, we would literally walk into a company and people would look at us funny because we were stealing jobs and we were automating stuff. My personal belief is that this is a throwback to the Luddites movement in the 1800s, where literally people were against the Industrial Revolution, and today that is sort of the pushback against AI. We are very clear, AI is not going to replace humans in the next 3 to 5 years.
Augment it or enhance it.
Exactly. So AI is going to augment humans, it's going to power it. We cannot take away the creativity that a human adds to the whole equation. Machine can follow rules and instructions, but
But
there
the
is a
machines
lot
will
of...
not take over?
We don't think so. That's why we're building Seekify. It's going to be much smarter than any machine so that humans will remain control.
Are you also the bad guy that, sometimes when you're just like furious and you want to speak to a human on the other side or connect with a human on the other side, but you can't? Have you guys figured it out when it's the right time to, replace the machine with the
Exactly.
human?
So this is exactly the kind of problem that Seekify will solve. When I notice that you're getting irritated and you don't like speaking to the bot, can I quickly switch it to the right human person? And also have that human person connect with you in a way that he understands your problem and is able to solve it.
Yeah.
Everybody we speak to across the world are very clear that the human touch is still very important.
Okay.
Nobody wants to deal with robots.
Before I wrap up, I want to just ask you a question. Who is your favorite Indian entrepreneur, the one you look up to the most, but not your second wife? You're not allowed to name him.
Oh, that's a tough question. I have to really think about this. So I recently met somebody you interviewed,
Okay.
Kunal of Cred.
Okay.
I genuinely think he's done a lot in terms of how he's changed the payment ecosystem, and a lot of what we see today goes back to a lot of the efforts he's done, and he continues to sort of spearhead that change. I think he's a great example of people who've actually solved real world problems and is continuing to go down that path. Plus, he's a great storyteller and super intelligent as well.
But would you put money into cred?
Yeah, I would.
You would? Has he asked you?
No, I don't think I fall into the right
He's very
checks.
well funded right now.
Yeah.
But tell me something, because you have also managed to exit at the right time, and you've had the blessings always to start a new business, etc. Do you ever look at mentoring younger founders?
Always.
Yeah?
Always. I believe that the Indian startup ecosystem is very much a ecosystem where you need to constantly keep giving. When we were early in the ecosystem, there is so many people who helped us with advice, even with funding, and we want to sort of pay back. I get many calls, many emails, people asking for advice, people asking for help, and we always give.
Okay.
It's sort of like, you know,
Do you take time out of your calendar once a month or once in 2 months?
I don't do
or
it very
something?
programmatically, but I will never refuse anybody, schedule it in.
Are you an angel investor too, who likes to
I am
bet at the-
personally not right now.
No? Is that something you think you'll want to do at some
Yeah,
point?
sure. After I've had my few successes and being an entrepreneur, then yeah, sure. I would love to not just be an investor, but be a much more involved investor.
So you worked at Silicon Valley, and you know there is this whole obsession also that will Bengaluru or India ever be the eastern part of the world's version of Silicon Valley?
Isn't it already?
I don't know, I'm asking you.
I think so. I think between Silicon Valley, Bangalore, and perhaps China, we've got the whole world covered. There is so much good tech coming out of here. It's insane. I think the reason is that Indians are entrepreneurs by nature. We are a jugadu lot, right? And it comes from our history and everything, that we see a problem and we want to solve it.
Yeah.
And obviously great education, great engineers make this a hotbed.
Okay.
One can argue lots more needs to happen, the government needs to do more, etc., etc. But even in the 10 years, the way we've seen the ecosystem evolve, it's only going to get stronger. I'm very, very bullish.
You're bullish. So that brings me to the other point. It's like, you know, the old economy, you're seeing a slowdown. There is lethargy which is coming in, pessimism, cynicism.
Yep.
But when you talk about the new economy, it's exuberant. It's like apni dunya mein a parallel universe. Would you agree with that?
But it's not like a sort of a
But it's
dystopian.
also backed by money.
Exactly, and it's real. I was just looking at some data. 10 years ago, the top 10 companies in the world were oil companies and retailers. Today, 3 of the top 10 companies in the world are tech companies.
Yeah.
It's projected that in another 5 years, almost all 10 are going to be tech companies. So this
Yeah.
is reality. The large part of the economy is being run by tech. The first $1 trillion companies in the world are not oil companies, but tech companies.
Yeah.
Is that
But
that
when we
fake?
talk of these $1 trillion companies as well, something the Indian startups have not looked at or are far away from looking at for whatever other reasons, IPOs. Why don't we see that taking off? Because we still don't know. Okay, we believe the valuation because one private equity guy or one fund guy is buying the other, but these are not public valuations.
I think IPO takes a lot of resilience, and it takes a long-term thinking. And Indian ecosystem is still immature, so I think in the next few years you'll see more and more IPOs coming. Typically, it is a 8 to 12 year cycle, right? So one can argue that the whole ecosystem is still new. That in the next few years you'll see a lot more of these IPOs happening. I think the Indian laws don't allow for an Indian IPO, but a lot of companies will go international.
Now they have a parallel stock exchange that they say they want to, have for
They're
startups.
trying. They're trying.
Yeah.
I don't think it's quite there yet, but
Okay.
I think Indian companies even doing international IPOs is a
Yeah.
huge one. I have full belief that Freshworks is going to be a hugely successful IPO in the US.
Okay. Is
Yeah.
that what they're looking at?
Eventually, yes. I think in the next
So a
couple
lot of
of
them
years.
actually do want to look in New York for an estate.
Yeah, for sure. The financial markets are just more mature.
Okay.
Right, you can't argue with that. A New York or a London is just more mature than an Indian market. So that being a choice of IPO is obviously very clear.
Speaking of IPOs, and because we're coming from WeWorks, there's been a global reset because of the IPO debacle of WeWorks. Is that true? And are founders and startups witnessing that? Because if SoftBank has to globally reset itself, is there a cascading impact?
100%. In the 90 days, you can literally feel the market soften.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of people in the ecosystem, and when there was money flowing, let's say in summer of 2019, come November, suddenly people are looking at things much more suspiciously. Is it right or wrong? I think it just goes through cycles. I've seen this cycle many, many times before. It's sort of just like an energy that people become more exuberant and hence more money starts coming in. Then it corrects and then it goes on. It's actually good for the ecosystem because only the strong survive. Only the ones with the real sustainable models will go forward. For a company like WeWork, they were talking about valuations that weren't realistic, right?
I know, I thought rule number 1 is be profitable for an IPO. I thought that's investment banking 101.
Not at all, not at all. You're selling dreams, right? It's all about the future. It's all about the timing. I think today WeWork is a real estate company. In the future, it's going to be a life-changing company.
So in this tough environment, the art of pitch, or making the perfect pitch, is going to be really, really important. So Arihant, this is my final question to you.
All right.
3 tips you want to give to the young founders, startups watching you right now. What makes a good pitch?
Have a story, tell a story. Know what really makes you unique and special. Have a big vision. Don't think small. VCs, the world, want to bet on something that is truly going to be phenomenal. I think we hold ourselves back with how small we dream. If we can truly dream big, that becomes super important. Third is build a real business. Don't make Excel models that are tortured until it tells the truth, right? Build something that is real, if not today, then 10 years from now. If you can follow these 3 these 3 principles and build a great business, money will follow. Don't build a business, focus on what a VC wants to hear.
With that, Arihant, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you
Lovely
so
meeting you.
much
Thank
having
you.
me. Cheers.